Hi, I'm Kitsap County Commissioner Rob Gelder, and welcome to this episode of Commissioner's Corner. Today, we're going to learn all about the county's response to inclement weather. I know you will learn a lot, so stay tuned. So joining me now is Joe Rutan, who is Kitsap County's road engineer. And Joe, thank you so much for being part of the program today. It's one of those things that, if we're lucky, we don't deal with inclement weather very often, but when it often happens and it stays. So usually our response to inclement weather doesn't happen inside one of our road shops, but it is driven by policy. So I was wondering if you could share with our viewers today a little bit about the snow and ice policy, and probably more importantly, as people kind of see what's happening on the landscape, our response system.
Yeah. Well, Kitsap County, we maintain and operate over 900 miles of roadway. So just putting that in perspective, if you got in a car and started driving on I-90 and you'd get to about the Little Bighorn. So think about that amount of mileage that you have to do, and it's both ways. So there's 915 centerline miles, which means we have over 1,800 lane miles of roadway that we need to plow. So yeah, we have to prioritize that work. First of all, we're going to look at where the weather is happening, obviously. In this county, as we all know, the weather can be very different in even close proximity. So we're doing a lot of reconnaissance. But in general, our roads are split into three criteria. Three priorities. First, going to be a priority one route. Those are going to be routes that are generally the highest volume of traffic. Mm-hmm. They're serving commercial centers, community centers, hospitals, schools. They're the routes that people would expect to be priority one routes. Our crews are going to sand, de-ice, or plow those routes until they are clear. So while it's snowing, we're pretty much going to be on priority one routes. And that's about 150 miles of that 900 miles. So you can, that's not getting everywhere. So once it stops snowing and priority one routes are clear, we'll move on to priority two routes. And those are going to be the community routes that get you to the priority one routes. Mm-hmm. We're not into the neighborhoods yet. Those priority two routes are, again, about 150 miles. So that accounts for about 300 miles. The rest, the entire 600 remaining miles, are considered local or residential roads. Mm-hmm. And those we're going to get to after we clear the priority one and two routes. So in some cases, especially a multi-day event, it can be 48 to 72 hours after snow stops before we will be addressing the priority three routes. Our crews take great pride in being able to get to everything and serving everyone, and they know that it's that final mile that can really be the issue. So we take great pride in that, but we do focus on those priority one routes, especially while it's snowing.
And I would just, as a matter of clarification, I think for folks, that we're really talking about the roads that are maintained by the county. So if it's unopened right-of-way that is, county-owned, that's not necessarily going to receive the service, or private roads.
Private roads, you need to work with your neighbors to develop a snow and ice control plan. The state routes are handled by the state, and city routes are handled by the cities. Now, we do work with all of those entities, the cities and the state, to make sure that any islands or inefficient areas for one that are more efficient for the other to plow, we do have agreements where we work to make sure that we have good and efficient coverage.
You stay on top of the weather reports. You kind of get an indication of what might be coming along. So what is the process that kind of really triggers that storm response? And potentially, I know that our crews go to 24/7 type of operations, 12-hour shifts, to make sure they stay on top of it.
Yeah.
How does that kind of play out?
We are very attuned to weather reports, and we have different information that we're taking in. We also have a lot of experience that people have, and so we know we plan for the worst, hope for the best. And so we're attuned to the weather reports. We have 3 separate road shops, one in each district of the county. And because the weather can be so different, they do make decisions independently, but we're looking at that as a whole team and unit also. So in our last event at the end of the year 21, we even though that was slightly different amongst the shops, we all went to a 12-hour shift, 24-hour operation at the same time. We came off of it at a different time due to the way the snowstorm ended. It ended much differently for different shops or different areas.
Okay.
To recap, each shop is making independent decisions with insight and evaluation from the overall management, and they work really well together and exchange information well.
That's great. So they're activated, and then what happens? At what point is it sort of the response ended?
That's always really interesting because we make a decision to go off of 12-hour shifts based on need. At all points, we're taking into account safety of our crews and their workforce and their ability to keep up this pace. So we make decisions on when to come off of the 24-hour shifts. That does not mean the event is over. The event goes on quite a while for us, actually, with cleanup. All that sand we put down, we now need to get it back up. When we're doing road clearing during the last event over in the Seaback, Hawley, Anderson Hill area, the east side of the county, they just got hammered with a lot of tree debris and things down. So we were out and we were opening roads, which means we cut the trees and get them off. Now we're out there cleaning it up, getting the shoulders clear, doing all the repair that these storms do to our roadways. Shoulder damage, yeah.
That's just, it's not one and done. It's not when the snow melts, it disappears. There's a lot of ongoing maintenance that goes into it.
The activities may alter, but the event is still being dealt with.
The storm event that followed Christmas of 2021, and that was in many ways had some unique properties. Could you tell folks about that?
Yes, that was first of all, it was a very, very it was a big storm. When snow falls onto a warm surface, and that's what we had. Christmas Day, if you remember, it was raining. The ground surface was warm and wet. The atmosphere got cold in the evening and started snowing, so snow started falling, but the surface was still warm and wet. So when that snow hit our roadways, and especially when it was driven over and compacted, it doesn't just freeze to the surface, it actually chemically bonds. Even a steel blade can't remove that. And then we're in the situation, if we're plowing that off completely, it actually can be very slick.
Right.
So that bonding of that ice to the roadway was very severe. And you can even see as it begins to melt, you'll see it actually breaking off in large chunks. It comes off kind of unnaturally. Well, that's that chemical bond breaking.
Yeah, I know that I live on a private lane, and my neighbors and I, we didn't necessarily have that plan in place of how were we going to respond, and that was stuck so solidly that it took a lot of effort and days to actually get it to move.
Yes.
It's amazing. Yeah. So you talked about a lot of some of the statistics you track relative to our snow response or an inclement weather response. So do you have any stats about how many pounds of sand or tons, or I guess not pounds, but we'd be talking tonnage?
We actually put together a neat little flyer that has this information. It is available on our website. We had between 7 and 9 inches in most parts of the county. Road crews drove nearly 52,000 miles of plowing, consumed over 13,000 gallons of fuel. We put down 700 tons of salt and 7,000 tons of sand. We replaced or repaired over 100 damaged road signs. Something that a lot of people don't think about, but when you have over 900 miles, you end up with a lot of damaged signs, which we need to respond to, many of them immediately.
Right, so when you're talking about a storm response, then it's not just your road crew, because the folks that are dealing with those signs, et cetera, are another part of another team within public works.
Absolutely. That's the traffic and signal crew. I think one of the largest groups that gets overlooked in a snow response, any sort of storm response, is our mechanics, who are keeping the equipment running. And when it's running 24 hours a day and out in it gets worked. The amount of work our mechanics do to keep our people out working is heroic.
Yeah, definitely, and most appreciated by everyone that's traveling part of our public. Joe, thank you again for being part of the program today. Is there anything that I should have asked you that I didn't, that you want to make sure our viewers know?
No.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Joining me now is Jacques Dean, who is Kitsap County's road superintendent. And thank you very much for being part of the program today. And as you know, we're talking about all things inclement weather, whether it's a big storm, whether it's just a dusting, but trying to understand what all goes into responding to that. And I think one of the things I find that's really interesting, and I think others do, is they are driving around and they kind of see those little stripes on the road. Yeah. Is that a big part of that response is salt brine, salt, sand, et cetera. Could you tell folks about what do we do in terms of our response before, during, and after?
Okay. So leading up to a storm event, we will apply brine to the roadways. And the brine acts as a layer. It prohibits the snow or ice from bonding to the pavement.
Okay.
And it allows us to easily plow the snow off the roadway. The problem with that, though, is it has to be dry. The pavement has to be dry before we apply the brine, because if it's wet or if it's raining, the solution is diluted, and then it either washes off the road or, and worse, it can freeze and cause a worse problem. So this week we had a great week where, it's a full week of cold weather overnight. So we brine the roads early on in the week, and once it's down, as long as it doesn't get washed off by rain, it's there and it's still functional. A lot of times we don't get that here when we get these events, because it rains leading up to a snow. It'll rain during the daytime, and then overnight it'll snow. And so we don't get the pre-treatment, which is also called anti-icing, the more formal term. We don't
Sorry
get the
to interrupt 1 second, but just for folks knowing, we're in an active road shop here today, so you probably just heard a truck go by, but just bear with us.
Anyways, we don't always have the opportunity to put the brine down first. So what we'll do, though, is after the snow is on the ground and it's compacted, we do apply it, and it's called de-icing in that case. We put it on top of the snow and ice, and what it does is it rots the snow from the top down.
Okay.
And starts to break it up. We might have to make a couple passes with the plow, but it breaks up that compacted snow and ice.
Probably similar to what people do at home.
Yeah. Sprinkle it on your sidewalks and it melts it from the top down. So that's a similar application. Now, if it's really dumping snow a lot, it doesn't make any sense to put the salt in, because the salt is absorbed into the mass or the volume of the snow. So you're wasting the salt at that point.
Okay.
We do use sand as well. Sand's the age-old traditional way of dealing with snow and ice. It's effective because it creates traction. It provides a friction course on the roadway to provide traction. Problem with that is it gets absorbed in the snow as well. If you got deep snow, it gets kind of chewed up with it. It does create kind of a musty slush. Probably saw that during this last event, where there was a little bit of a slushy, dirty slush on top, which provides traction as well. Sometimes we use them in combination. We'll use, some of our trucks have what are called saddle tanks that are full of brine, and in the inside, in the sander box, of course, is sand. And as the sand is spread out, we're also spraying brine. It wets the sand, and it allows it to stick to the pavement.
Oh, okay.
When you get real cold, hard, compact ice, and you spread the sand out, if you've ever followed a sanding truck, you'll see the sand bouncing all over the road, and over a short time, the vehicle traffic kicks it all off to the side, and the wheel tracks are back down to bare snow and ice. So by pre-wetting the sand before it's applied on the roadway, it actually sticks, and then it's more effective.
And does that then the brine mixed in actually help with the melting of the ice?
Oh yeah,
on the
yep.
sand?
And
Okay.
it'll actually cause the sand to kind of seep down into the ice. So that's an effective method as well.
Okay. So you were talking about the application. What kind of equipment is involved in the actually application of the brine?
For the brine, we have a brine machine. It's a machine that you add salt to and water. And just for public knowledge, we have it's got a 23% salt content. That is the optimum content. You go above that, it's not as effective. If you have less salt, it's not as effective. But that 23% is kind of that optimum point where it's most effective on the road. So we have the brine tank. We have a brine truck that has got a big tank on the back, and it's got a spray bar, and we spread it on the roadway at about between 25 and 35 gallons per mile. So we're not putting a whole lot of it on the roadway.
That's actually amazing. That's not a lot of gallons for that amount of coverage, and yet it has that much impact.
Yep. Yeah, it does. It's not much salt at all. We also, we've got trucks with sander boxes on the back. They spread it at, the sand goes down a little bit more, and it depends on the event as well, on how hard the snow and ice is compacted on the roadway. We'll put down 25 to 100 pounds per mile. It just depends on the situation. We've got plows on the trucks as well to plow the snow off. We'll sometimes use our graders as well, just to supplement the trucks, to get our plow program done quicker. But those are the three primary things we use.
You mentioned sand and the application of that, and when I was talking with Joe Rutan earlier, he was talking about, not only the event and active, but the cleanup afterwards. So what happens to the sand as that's cleaned up off the roadways? Can we reuse it?
Yeah, we can reuse it. And, when we pick it up, it'll have some deleterious material in it, pine needles and, other stuff. So sometimes we'll rescreen it to clean all that out. But yeah, we'll use it again. It's only going to be on the roadway for a few days, maybe a week at the longest. Our events usually aren't that long. And so yeah, we'll reuse it if it's suitable.
So how many people does it take to actually prep, say, a brine truck? In terms of loading it, operating it, is it just a single person job, or what does that look like?
It's a one-person job. The drivers all know how to operate the brine machine, so they load their own trucks. Okay. We've got one brine truck in each district. That person will operate it, get as many roads as they can within their work hours. During the winter season, we have a designated night crew, and they'll also brine when we have the cold weather forecast. So we'll have a person in the daytime and a person at night in each district applying brine.
Okay, wow. So have we really found that the application of brine during these inclement weather events, has that really helped with reduction in collisions that we're aware of?
I just read a study here not too long ago from the state of Idaho, and they determined that it reduces vehicle accidents by up to 83% during storm events.
So that's actually helping them have better traction so that we can reduce that type of accidents or collisions, et cetera. So one of the biggest impacts, I think, that our public may not really understand because they're more focused on the plowing activity, the brining activity, but the impact actually on staff. We talked about sort of the kind of shifting into high gear in a different type of work schedule. Can you talk a little bit about that and just sort of how that ends up working out and really the impact of trying to do that for, who knows how many days at a time? That can be pretty draining and exhausting for the staff.
It is draining to them. We typically go to a 12-12 shift when we have a prolonged storm event. So half of our crew, and there's 65 individuals out in the road shops, about half of them go to a night shift, and it's from 10 o'clock at night until 7 o'clock in the morning. And so it's shifting up their normal schedule, their sleep habits, they're away from their family, and it's white knuckle type work, especially when we have an event like we had over this last Christmas, where you had the hard, compact snow and ice on the road. The trucks are all chained up. But in an event like that, they're still slipping and sliding, and they're plowing hills and curves and things like that to make the road safe for the rest of us. At nighttime, too, for the night crew. And so it's wearing. By the end of the events, they're tired. They're proud. They're committed to keeping the road safe for the rest of the traveling public. But it's tiring work for them.
What can the public do during an inclement weather event to actually help your staff, the crews do their job better?
Of course, people have to go places, but if you can stay home, stay home. Because the less vehicles we have on the roadway, the easier, the more safer it's going to be for the crews as well as the traveling public during those events. So stay home if you can. Parking vehicles on the side of the road, they become an obstacle as well that we have to work around, and we're not able to fully complete our operation. Be patient. It takes time. We've got 915 centerline miles of roadway to plow. And we try to get the primaries done first so people get to the important institutions, the hospitals, the stores, schools, things like that, and then we work our way back to collectors and local roads. So if you live in a residential neighborhood of Platte, we might not be there for a little while. And especially when we have successive events, because we'll get through our priority 1 and 2 roads, and then we'll have another storm event. We have to start over again. If we can stick to our route plan, we're going to get to you. We know it snowed. We know you got to go places, and we're trying to do the work as quickly as we can. So I ask it, just be patient.
And it's not just me trying to get to the grocery store. It is making the roads passable for those first responders that may be going to some type of event. Is there anything that our viewers need to know that I did not ask you today?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, Jacques, thanks so much for being part of it. And I just want everyone to know that I appreciate, we all appreciate the work that our crews do to respond to inclement weather. And they're a phenomenal team of dedicated professionals. And there's always opportunities. If you are interested in joining that team to be part of it, just check out the county's website as well when it comes to employment opportunities.
Yeah, thank you.
Jacques, thanks so much for being part of the program. And we'll next hear a little bit more about how you can stay tuned and be connected to the information as it comes up available. And joining me now is Doug Baer, who is our public communications manager, and we're back inside out of the cold to talk a little bit more about how do members of the public understand or hear about or stay in touch with the information when emergency arises and we activate inclement weather and all that kind of stuff?
Well, we have a couple of different ways. The inclement weather page, which is at kcowa.us/IW, that's the best place to go. That's the first page that we update. That's where we keep the most recent information, not only on roads and road conditions, but as well facilities, facility closures, restricted hours, that type of stuff. On that page, you can subscribe to notifications. You can get notifications either by text message or you can get them by email. And those notifications come out during storms frequently. So, if there's a priority 1 road that gets closed, we'll send out a notification. If the facilities are closed, if the courthouse is closed, we'll send that out. So primarily, the inclement weather page is a great place to bookmark, and then signing up for those notifications, there's 2 categories. One's inclement weather and emergency information. That's good not only for winter weather, but we get flooding and we get the tornado on occasion, but that's a great resource when we have some sort of emergency. The other would be the road report, and that is, again, it takes road conditions during inclement weather, but it also will let you know where road work is going to be the following week when it's not inclement weather. So those 2 subjects are great to subscribe to, and it doesn't cost anything to subscribe to that information, and we can send it both ways.
So you mentioned a web address, and we'll make sure that that's included at the end of the program. But what happens for someone who may not be tech savvy, who doesn't necessarily spend or go to their computer to get information?
Well, we have Kitsap One. We call it your first call for county services. It's 360-337-5777. And our call agents are equipped to help people with that. So, we get a ton of calls during inclement weather. And oftentimes we're able to either get them to the resources they need or at least let them know, some reasonable expectation of where we are and when they could expect to see somebody in their neighborhood.
So going to the website, getting information there, either the road report, which is a great resource too when it comes to when we get into construction season, not necessarily inclement weather, it's a great resource. But then subscriptions, you can either get through email notifications
or on your smartphone.
On your smartphone as well.
It's actually kind of nice because when we send them out, I'll see if I'm in the office, you'll hear a bunch of smartphones go off, and then people start saying, hey, don't go home on Newberry Hill because it's closed. And so it's the best way to keep informed. In our road crews, it's actually kind of nice. They have a little app on their phones, so if they need to report a road closure, they just do it through a little fill in the block type thing off their phone. That automatically gets sent to the communications folks, and then from there we can get that message out to the residents.
So it's very much real time.
Totally.
That's awesome.
And the road report online, which you can get to from the front page, that will show you anytime the current road conditions, including inclement weather and construction and maintenance projects.
Well, wonderful. Well, Doug, thank you so much for
My
that.
pleasure.
Is there anything else that our viewers should know about?
No, I really encourage those two topics. Sign up for the inclement weather and the emergency information as well as the road report. And if you're interested in other parts of the county, there's a topic called County News. And essentially you get the front page news, the same stuff that we're sending to the media for everything that's going on in the county. So we have about 73,000 people subscribing to that service currently.
Wow, that's amazing.
It is. It's a great service, and it's a great way to stay informed about what's going on in the county.
Cool. Well, thank you so much.
My
I appreciate
pleasure.
it. And thank you as well for tuning in to this episode of Commissioner's Corner. Hopefully, we don't experience inclement weather very often, but when it does, I hope that you've learned a little bit about the issues that we have, how we activate, how we deliver services, and how you can stay informed. So hope you learned something, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.